My beloved child, before you question what happened, listen carefully. The conversation you have been waiting to hear has already taken place. The person you love spoke about you when no one expected your name to be mentioned. They tried to sound calm, but every sentence carried more emotion than they wanted anyone to notice. The listener paused, looked into their eyes, and quietly asked, "Why do you keep thinking about this person?" For a brief moment, there was complete silence. That silence revealed more than words ever could. Stay with me for a moment, because what happened next changed the direction of that conversation in a way nobody expected. As this unfolds, clarity will come. Something huge is waiting for you, and the next part of this story may completely change the way you see everything that has been happening around you. The person you love finally admitted something they had hidden for far too long. They confessed that every time they tried to move forward, your memory quietly returned without warning. It was not because of a single moment or one unforgettable memory. It was because your presence had become part of the lessons they could never ignore. The one listening did not interrupt. Instead, they smiled gently and said, "Then why are you pretending everything is ordinary?" Those words landed deeply. Your person lowered their eyes, realizing they had been carrying emotions they could no longer hide. This may resonate as we continue, because the next statement surprised even the person who heard it. Without planning it, they began describing the smallest things they remembered about you. Not grand events, not dramatic stories, but simple moments that somehow refused to fade away. They remembered your kindness, your patience, and the way your presence made ordinary days feel meaningful. The listener quietly replied, "People only remember details like that when someone has truly touched their heart." At that exact moment, your person stopped speaking, as if they had suddenly understood something about themselves that had been hidden in plain sight all along. They realized this story was never about coincidence. It was about recognition. Stay with me for a moment, because the final part of this message brings an unexpected realization that connects every piece together. As the conversation came to an end, the listener shared one final thought that echoed long after the words were spoken. They said, "Sometimes life delays answers, not because they are lost, but because they become more valuable with time." Your person quietly nodded, holding on to those words with unusual care. They did not argue. They did not explain. They simply carried the thought with them, knowing it would return again. As this unfolds, clarity will come. Something huge is waiting for you, because what was spoken in that private conversation was only the beginning. The next step is no longer about hidden feelings, it is about a moment that will reveal why this conversation happened exactly when it did. Before everything ended, one unexpected detail remained. The listener smiled and said, "When the right chapter begins, you will no longer need to search for proof, because the truth will reveal itself naturally." Those words stayed in your person's heart long after they walked away. They left with a quieter mind but a stronger understanding that some connections are remembered for a reason. This may resonate as we continue, because the next chapter uncovers what happened after they walked away from that conversation, and the discovery waiting there is something they never imagined would unfold. The next morning felt different, even though nothing around them seemed to have changed. Your person carried that conversation in silence, replaying every word as if searching for a hidden meaning they had missed. Then something unexpected happened. Someone else noticed the change before they did. A close friend looked at them and quietly asked, "You seem lighter today. Did you finally speak about the one who has been on your mind?" Your person froze for a second before giving a small smile. They did not deny it. They simply looked away, and that single reaction said more than a long explanation ever could. Stay with me for a moment, because the next part of this conversation revealed something they never intended anyone to know. The friend leaned in and shared an observation that completely caught your person off guard. "Whenever your future comes up," they said, "your voice changes the moment you mention them." Those words created another long silence. Your person realized that what they believed was carefully hidden had been visible all along. They admitted that every plan they imagined somehow included the thought of you, even if they never said your name aloud. As this unfolds, clarity will come. Sometimes the heart speaks through the smallest actions before the mind is ready to admit the truth. And what your person shared next surprised even their closest companion. For the first time, they stopped talking about doubts and started talking about hope. They described a future where unfinished conversations finally found their answers and where misunderstandings no longer stood between two hearts. Their friend smiled and replied, "Then perhaps you already know what matters most. You've just been waiting for the right moment to believe it." Hearing those words brought an unexpected sense of peace. This may resonate as we continue, because every piece of this story is quietly moving towards something meaningful. If this story has touched your heart so far, share this video with someone who believes meaningful conversations can change everything, and subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. Just before they walked away, the friend offered one final thought. Life has a remarkable way of bringing clarity when people are finally ready to see it. Your person nodded without saying another word, but deep inside, something had already shifted. The conversation was no longer about wondering what to do, it had become about recognizing what had always been true. Something huge is waiting for you, because the next chapter reveals the unexpected sign your person noticed shortly after this conversation, a moment so meaningful that it made them pause and quietly reflect on everything they had just shared. A little later, when the conversation had already ended and everyone else had moved on, your person experienced something they could not easily explain. It was not a dramatic event. It was a quiet moment that arrived without warning. A familiar song, a familiar place, or even a simple memory suddenly reminded them of you again. They smiled without realizing it. Then they whispered to themselves, "Why does every path somehow lead me back to this thought?" That question stayed with them far longer than they expected. Stay with me for a moment, because what happened next felt less like coincidence and more like a gentle reminder that some connections leave a lasting mark. As they continued through the day, another conversation began, this time with themselves. They reflected on the things they had never said aloud. They realized that they had spent so much time searching for perfect timing that they almost overlooked the value of honest feelings. In that quiet reflection, one truth became impossible to ignore: the moments they treasured most were the ones connected to you. As this unfolds, clarity will come. Sometimes understanding doesn't arrive with loud announcements. Sometimes it appears in the calm moments when the heart finally stops running from its own answers. Then an unexpected message from someone completely unrelated shifted their perspective even more. It wasn't about you directly, yet the words felt strangely meaningful. The message simply encouraged them to appreciate the people who bring peace, kindness, and genuine warmth into life. They paused for a long time after reading it. They didn't need anyone to explain why those words felt important. They already knew whose face had quietly appeared in their thoughts. This may resonate as we continue, because that small reminder gave them the courage to believe that meaningful connections deserve appreciation rather than silence. Before the day came to an end, your person made a quiet promise to themselves. They would stop letting uncertainty control every decision and start paying attention to what truly mattered. They understood that some answers arrive step by step, not all at once, and that patience often reveals what rushing never can. Something huge is waiting for you, because the next chapter uncovers the surprising realization they woke up with the following day, a realization that connected every conversation, every memory, and every quiet feeling into one unforgettable truth. There was one final piece your person had not shared with anyone. Early the next day, they found themselves looking back at everything that had happened, not to relive the past, but to understand it. Suddenly, one simple realization stood out above all the rest. Every meaningful conversation had quietly guided them toward the same conclusion. It was never about finding the perfect words. It was about recognizing the value of someone who had consistently brought sincerity, peace, and inspiration into their life. Stay with me for a moment, because the last message they received brought everything together in a way they never expected. A trusted voice then offered them a thought they will likely remember for a long time. The people who leave the deepest impression are not always the loudest. They are the ones whose presence continues to bring clarity even after the conversation ends. Your person sat with those words in silence. For the first time, they stopped questioning every feeling and simply allowed themselves to appreciate what had become clear through reflection. As this unfolds, clarity will come. Sometimes the greatest discoveries are not hidden in extraordinary events. They are found in the quiet moments when the heart finally understands what it has been trying to say all along. As they prepared to move forward, they realized this story was not ending, it was beginning a brand new chapter. The conversation about you had become a turning point, not because it changed everything overnight, but because it helped them see what had always been there. If this journey has kept you thinking from beginning to this moment, share this video with someone who enjoys meaningful stories, and subscribe so you can continue this journey with us in the next chapter. This may resonate as we continue, because the next story reveals an unexpected moment that added one final layer of understanding to everything they had discovered. Before leaving, your person smiled with a calm confidence that had not been there before. They no longer felt the need to chase every answer immediately. Instead, they chose to trust that the right moments reveal themselves in their own time. And perhaps that was the greatest lesson of all. Something huge is waiting for you, not because of a dramatic surprise, but because every meaningful step has quietly been leading toward a deeper understanding. Sometimes the most unforgettable message is the one that gently reminds you that genuine connections continue to shine, even after the conversation is over. Long after those conversations had faded into memory, one unexpected detail continued to return to your person's mind. It was not a sentence, not a promise, but a question they had quietly been asked: if you had one more chance to express what truly matters, what would you say? They never answered it that day. But now, standing in a completely different moment, the answer came naturally. They realized they would speak with honesty instead of hesitation. They would choose appreciation instead of silence. Stay with me for a moment, because the realization that followed became the missing piece of everything you have heard so far. As they reflected, they understood something surprising. Every conversation about you had shared one common thread. No one had spoken about possessions, status, or appearances. Instead, every discussion returned to the same qualities: your kindness, your patience, and the quiet encouragement you brought into people's lives. Your person smiled because they finally understood why your name had stayed with them for so long. It wasn't chance. It was the lasting impact of the way you made others feel. As this unfolds, clarity will come. Sometimes the greatest influence is the one that never asks to be noticed. Then came a moment they would remember for years. Someone crossed paths with them unexpectedly and asked a simple question: have you found the answer you've been searching for? Without thinking, your person replied, I'm beginning to. That response surprised even them. It wasn't about certainty. It was about growth. They had stopped searching for complicated explanations and started trusting the quiet lessons life had been offering all along. This may resonate as we continue, because the story is no longer about wondering what was said, it's about understanding why those words mattered in the first place. Before this chapter closed, your person looked ahead with a renewed sense of hope. They knew that meaningful conversations are never wasted, because they often reveal truths that only become clear with time. And if there was one lesson they carried forward, it was this: the most unforgettable connections are built through sincerity, respect, and genuine care. Something huge is waiting for you, because the next story begins with a message your person never expected to receive. A message that has the power to connect every chapter you've experienced into one unforgettable conclusion. The story reached its quietest moment when your person received one final conversation they never expected. There were no grand speeches and no dramatic surprises. The voice on the other side simply said, "You have spent so much time looking for signs around you that you almost missed the biggest one within yourself." Those words settled deeply. For a long moment, they said nothing at all. They realized that every discussion about you had slowly helped them become more honest, more grateful, and more certain about what truly mattered. Stay with me for a moment, because the final realization ties every chapter together. Looking back, they could now see a pattern that had been invisible before. Every person they had spoken with had unknowingly pointed them in the same direction. One reminded them of your kindness. Another spoke about your consistency. Someone else noticed the way your name naturally brought warmth into the conversation. None of those people planned to deliver the same message, yet together they formed a picture that could no longer be ignored. As this unfolds, clarity will come. Sometimes the truth is not revealed through one extraordinary moment, but through many small moments that quietly fit together. Your person smiled as they understood something that changed their perspective forever. They had been waiting for certainty to arrive from the outside, when in reality it had been growing within them all along. They no longer felt the need to rush or force answers. Instead, they chose to appreciate every meaningful conversation, every lesson, and every memory that had guided them here. This may resonate as we continue, because every ending is also the beginning of a new chapter waiting to be written. Before this journey came to a close, your person whispered one final thought that they hoped life would carry forward. The conversations that change us the most are often the quiet ones we almost overlook. And with that, they stepped into the future with a lighter heart, knowing that sincere connections leave lasting echoes long after the words have ended. Something huge is waiting for you, not in the form of a single revelation, but in the quiet confidence that meaningful relationships are built one honest conversation at a time. And perhaps, that is the message that was waiting to be heard from the very beginning. The journey did not truly end there. Days later, your person found themselves revisiting every conversation in their mind, but this time with completely different eyes. Instead of asking, "What did everyone mean?" they began asking, "What was I meant to learn?" That single shift changed everything. The answers no longer felt distant. They were already there, hidden inside the quiet moments they had almost ignored. Stay with me for a moment, because the final chapter begins with a realization that arrived when they least expected it. One evening, while reflecting in complete silence, your person remembered a sentence that had been spoken at the very beginning of this story. At the time, it seemed ordinary. Now it carried a completely new meaning. The people who truly matter are remembered even when no one is trying to remember them. Those words brought a peaceful smile to their face. They finally understood why your name had continued to appear in conversations, thoughts, and reflections. It was never about coincidence. It was about the lasting impression created by genuine kindness, respect, and authenticity. As this unfolds, clarity will come, because every chapter has been quietly leading to this understanding. Then came one final conversation with someone who had observed everything from the sidelines. That person smiled and said, "Do you know what surprised me the most?" Every time people spoke about this story, they ended up talking about hope instead of doubt. Your person paused. They realized that hope had quietly replaced uncertainty without them even noticing. The conversations that once felt confusing had become stepping stones toward a clearer perspective. This may resonate as we continue, because sometimes the greatest transformation happens so gently that we only recognize it when we look back. Before walking away from this chapter, your person took one last deep breath and chose gratitude over questions. They understood that not every meaningful story needs a dramatic ending. Some stories are remembered because they leave the heart lighter, the mind clearer, and the future brighter. And so, they carried one final message with them: every sincere word, every thoughtful conversation, and every quiet moment has the power to shape a life in ways we may not immediately see. Something huge is waiting for you, not as a surprise hidden somewhere ahead, but as the quiet confidence that the most valuable connections continue to grow with honesty, patience, and understanding. And with that, this story finds its peaceful conclusion, while leaving the door open for many more meaningful chapters yet to come.